I'm going to go through 6 reasons why a pure, strict carnivore diet might not actually work, and most of them will surprise you. Many people forget about the value or importance of epigenetics on someone's dietary makeup in terms of what is optimal or what people may thrive on. Now, what we eat historically will impact what we are meant to eat right now. Remember what I said, this might be optimal rather than just possible. So we're looking at things like pastoral genes. There is an epigenetic polymorphism that suggests that we should eat a bit more dairy, perhaps, or sardines with the bones in, basically anything which has a significant amount of calcium in it. Now, what we've been eating for perhaps the last, say, 10, 20,000 years will impact what we're meant to eat today. Remember what I said again, for the third time, about being optimal. It's estimated that around 24% of people have pastoral genes. Perhaps they were traditionally farmers, perhaps they milked cows. They had a higher dairy intake, therefore a higher calcium intake. You think about this logically. If someone was eating historically, ancestrally, a diet with that in it for a significantly long period of time, then it's likely that their genetics would have adapted to be able to consume more and perhaps even need more. There are some side effects to people that I notice do the lion diet, at least for a long period of time. And it's that they tend to get heart palpitations. Not always, but it is common. And that is a reason why I think many people do not do the strict lion carnivore diet. I'd estimate only 2 people out of several hundred people that I've ever met online do actually follow it. And that's outside of the obvious Michaela Peterson, for example. Now, the other reason is untreated hypothyroid. So someone might actually have what's called a lower gluconogenic capacity, meaning they cannot transmute amino acids and fatty acids as well into glucose that their brain might need. So I've noticed, at least in my research, for what it's worth, there's around a 45% lesser capacity to adequately use the gluconogenic pathway. Now, these are just enzymatic reactions. It doesn't mean someone's broken. It just means it's a bit iffy, basically. So yes, it is strictly speaking true. We just need protein and fat to survive. But there are some people that might just have a bit of a hard time doing it. So the simple inclusion of perhaps a few berries or something, or just some Greek yogurt with some, a bit of lactose in it, might actually alleviate that problem. However, want to make it very clear, this is for untreated people with hypothyroid. So if you are supplementing with thyroid medicine, this will alleviate that pathway. The next one, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you would have guessed, is actually the Lone Star tick, in that someone just can't seem to tolerate much beef, perhaps, much red meat. That is possible. Again, very, very, very uncommon. The next one, which I think a lot of you might have guessed as well, is hemochromatosis. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot consume large amounts of iron, but you have to be a bit more considerate and thoughtful about the amount of iron that you're taking in, meaning you might actually have to let blood in order to reduce that amount. Your body cannot clear away iron to a great enough degree. So perhaps every few months or however needed, it's as regular as you need it based on your blood values and how you feel, your subjective feel. That'll impact whether or not you'll be able to be successful on a carnivore diet. The other one is more of a transitional issue, I think, and that is a poor liver and gallbladder function, which leads to malabsorption of fat, which could be indicated by a lower lipase concentration in the digestive tract and also a lower bile acid production, in which case I recommend to a lot of people just to eat maybe 1 or 2 extra meals, split up your fat content, don't overload your body. Remember, this is another example of a enzymatic problem with the body. It doesn't mean your default is that you'll always have that issue, but it means that you might have to alleviate it in the short term by splitting up your meals, reducing your fat intake perhaps. Now, the last one for people that have stuck around for this long is incessant carbohydrate addiction, which is very common and it is almost the norm. I'd say it is, at least in the Western world, the norm. Carbohydrate addiction is an absolute fact. It is an absolute thing which most people suffer of, including myself. In the past, I'd eat an immense amount of carbohydrates, completely unnecessary. Do I feel better now without them? Yes. Do I train better with them? No, absolutely not. And now this can be linked to the appeal to individuality in that they think, oh, I've had a boost because I've had a handful of berries before the gym. The reality is if you're doing the carnivore diet properly and you're given enough time, you don't need that. This is more to do with tolerance, I think, as well. Some people just have a different tolerance to, being in a ketogenic diet, at least in the greater or more longer period of the day, I'd say. My argument to this is that we are 99.9% biologically almost identical. So I have a really hard time finding anyone that just cannot do a meat, fat, dairy, if you like it, kind of diet. I actually recommend people, if they can tolerate dairy, to use dairy as a carbohydrate source, if they happen to think they need it, rather than berries. That's just my opinion, though. I think that something like, raw milk is a good example of something to take in. Vitamins, minerals, active enzymes, lower in deuterium is a better source of carbohydrates to those that can tolerate it than things such as berries. I'm probably a bit biased because I cannot tolerate berries at all. So for me, raw milk, I quite enjoy it. It allows me to eat a substantial amount of food. And I just find it quite helpful. I'll notice when I drop out dairy, I don't quite feel as good. Now, this could be linked back to the first point, which was on epigenetics, calcium intake, pastoral genes, so on. Hopefully you find this video quite useful. It just gives you an idea of why someone might be struggling. Now, these are all things that you can find out about yourself on the carnivore diet. And nothing I've said in this video is in an opposition to what the main carnivore doctors have said online. So if you're going to leave a comment below saying you don't know what you're talking about, ask the others. Don't take my word for it. Ask someone else that is apparently more of an expert on it than I am. Thanks very much for watching. Take care and see you soon. Build muscle and lose fat on the carnivore diet.